You've made this distinction in previous discussions that I wanted to pull apart around fruitfulness and productivity. And obviously there's this big worship of productivity. I've talked about it in my video, so I think it's a helpful thing to sort of unpack. What's that about? What's this distinction between fruitfulness? It's obviously from the Bible, it's a concept from the Bible, you know, the good tree will bear good fruit. Let's run us through that.
I think that you can get like bogged down in the weeds a bit if all you're chasing is productivity. If it's like this sterile, on paper, measurable only result, then I think that for like the 1%ers who abandon all other of their lives, aspects of their lives in order to pursue this thing, then of course they're going to make it, but everyone else is going to be discouraged because, you know, I think that, well, not everyone is cut out for it, for one, and for another, there's a lot of other things to pursue and to obtain for a well-rounded existence rather than just the thing. And so if you're purely going on productivity, then having a girlfriend or like courting a girl in order to be married, or having a wife or having children, that's not doing the thing. That's not being very productive. So if you're like, if you had a small child that you could just like sit them in front of a TV and indoctrinate them, you could say, with like productivity maxing content, like Alex Hormozy and stuff, then they're probably just going to grow up and be this sterile robot that, you know, doesn't do anything apart from the thing. And I think that that's unhealthy. Like I said, you can get bogged down in it also, and it will leave you, I think, wanting in a lot of senses. Like it's cool, man. Like if you're an atheist who doesn't believe in moral good and another life and the calling of Scripture and what Scripture in Christ has called us to obtain in this life, you know, having children and so on, then sweet. You're probably never going to get bogged down. You're probably just going to be like, I'm doing the thing, this is my vocation, there's no God, there's no afterlife, then you're probably going to be pretty fulfilled. But if you have even the slightest inkling that that's not the case, then you're going to be pretty unhappy, I'd say. And there's a way that you can sort of come to terms with both. You know, like, oh, I'm doing the thing for my family. Sure, but I think that most people have trouble reconciling that. Whereas fruitfulness is, there's no arguing with that. Like going to work every day for your family, that's fruitful. Having a family, that's fruitful. Praying, this is the big one. This is always the one I come back to. You could argue
Praying is like a useless
praying
activity.
is useless. It's not productive at all. And that is obviously a travesty. So that mentality, I think, is, I wouldn't say dangerous, but unhelpful. And there's a lot of particular young men who are being exposed to that sort of like productivity maxing content. And I think that it's just missing so much of the point.
Would you say productivity is always oriented to like material goods and material success?
I would say yes. And of course there's an argument against that. I'll concede, you know, points in that conversation for sure. But the simple fact that the concept of fruitfulness exists necessarily means that productivity is lacking. Because fruitfulness is all encompassing.
Or productivity is more like a part of being fruitful.
Sure, yes, yeah. That's a great way to put it, for sure. So I think that, yeah, I would argue that it's missing the point, and it's just not there. It's incomplete.
So you think fruitfulness perhaps is like a better concept to, I don't know, I always think of like extending the time frame. It's like, okay, well, technically I could work 18 hours today, but over the course of 7 days or 7 months, it is actually a lot better and a lot healthier for me if I take intentional downtime at the end of the day or at the end of the week. Even though I might be full of energy and full of gas, I actually, well, we're pacing this out eventually to eternity, so there's actually other things that I have to take into consideration here.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly it. And I think that most people just don't think very long term, and that's an issue that will permeate through a multitude of different aspects of people's lives. But yeah, that's a really important distinction for me: fruitfulness over productivity.